Jackson never believed the quiet stillness of a Sunday morning could be shattered so violently, so abruptly, until the moment he pushed open the bathroom door and found a terrified, soaked woman standing there, gripping the sink as if it were the only thing keeping her from collapsing. 5 minutes earlier, he had been flipping pancakes, laughing at Mia's messy attempt to pour syrup in the shape of a heart, and humming along to her off-key rendition of a princess song. The house smelled like vanilla and sunlight, like routine and comfort, everything he fought to protect since becoming a single dad. But all of that evaporated the second he stepped into the bathroom and saw her. Hair dripping, clothes torn, breath trembling, eyes frantic. Jackson froze mid-step, his brain scrambling between disbelief, alarm, and the instinct to protect his home. "Who? What? How did you get in my house?" he stammered, raising his hand slightly as if she were a wild animal spooked by sudden movement. She inhaled sharply, chest rising and falling in shallow bursts, and with a voice that could barely stand on its own, she whispered, "Please, don't call the police." Shock jolted through him. Her tone wasn't defiant, it was desperate. Afraid. Hunted. Jackson threw her a towel without thinking. She caught it with shaking hands and wrapped herself tightly, shrinking into the corner between the sink and bathtub. Even in her fear, she kept glancing toward the hallway, toward Mia, like she didn't want the little girl to see her like this. Jackson noticed the purple bruise blooming on her arm, the torn sleeve, the scratches around her wrist that looked far too deliberate to be accidental. "Are you hurt?" he asked, lowering his voice. She swallowed hard. "My name is Alina," she whispered. "And someone is looking for me." His stomach dropped. "Who?" She closed her eyes before answering, as if saying it out loud might summon the monster she feared. "The man who tried to kill me." The air went cold, thick, heavy. Jackson stepped closer, his voice suddenly firm, controlled. "Start from the beginning." But before Alina could speak, a loud thud hit the bathroom window. She flinched so violently she almost slipped. Jackson's instincts flared like lightning. He moved in front of her automatically, shielding her with his body. The thud came again, lighter this time, like gravel kicked against the glass. Alina's voice trembled. "He's here." Jackson's pulse hammered. Every nerve in his body screamed danger. He peered through the blinds, just enough to see the street. A dark van idled by the curb. A man stood beside it, scanning the houses with sharp, wolf-like eyes. He wasn't lost. He wasn't waiting for someone. He was hunting. For her. Jackson closed the blinds quietly, his jaw tightening. For 5 years, he had done everything to keep Mia safe. Working late shifts, avoiding unnecessary risks, turning his life into a fortress of predictable routines. Now a stranger with bruises and fear in her eyes had brought danger straight into his home. And yet, when he looked at Alina, trembling and drenched, something in him refused to see her as a threat. She was someone running from something far bigger than she could outrun alone. Mia's innocent humming drifted down the hallway again, grounding Jackson's thoughts. He couldn't let that man outside anywhere near his daughter. He couldn't let him near Alina either, not until he understood what was happening. Jackson locked the bathroom door, motioning for Alina to stay silent. He stepped into the hallway, checking on Mia, who was happily coloring purple wings on her unicorn. When she looked up, her smile was so simple, so trusting, it made his chest ache. "Daddy, look, she can fly now." "That's beautiful, sweetheart," he whispered. "Stay here, okay? Don't move from this room." "Okay," she chirped, returning to her crayons. Jackson pulled out his phone. He was about to dial 911 when Alina slipped out of the bathroom, shaking her head frantically. "You can't," she whispered. "You don't understand. They're connected." Jackson frowned. "Who?" "The people I worked for," she said, touching the bruise on her arm unconsciously, as if it still burned. "I was a data analyst at a private security firm. I found files, things they were hiding. Millions in illegal transfers, fake contracts, surveillance on people they had no right to track. When I reported it to my supervisor, I was fired." She took a trembling breath. "And then they sent him after me." She pointed in the direction of the van. Jackson felt the world tilt. This wasn't a random break-in. This wasn't coincidence. This was a woman running from something dark, something powerful. If you call the police, she whispered, they'll know. He'll know. They'll get to me before help does. Jackson rubbed his forehead, torn between fear and responsibility. What am I supposed to do? He whispered harshly. My daughter is here. Alina's eyes softened with guilt and desperation. I know. I'm sorry. I panicked. I saw your back door open. I just needed someone who looked kind. Jackson's heart clenched in a way he didn't expect. He looked at Mia again. Small, innocent, trusting. Then at the van. Then at the broken woman in front of him. Something cracked open inside him. The same instinct that had carried him through the hardest years of raising a child alone. As another thud echoed from outside, Jackson made a decision that surprised even himself. Get Mia's backpack, he said quietly. Alina blinked in confusion. What? We're leaving. Through the alley. Her eyes widened. You're helping me. You came into my house terrified and unarmed, he said. I'm not turning you away. There was no time for more questions. Jackson moved quickly, gently scooping up Mia, whispering, Sweetheart, we're going on a little adventure. Very quietly, okay. Ooh. Like hide and seek. Exactly, he whispered. Mia nodded, excited and oblivious, wrapping her arms around his neck. Alina followed them, limping slightly, still shaking. They slipped through the back door just as the man from the van knocked loudly on their front door. Jackson didn't look back. He led them through narrow alleys he knew by heart, ducking behind sheds and broken fences, making sure Mia's head stayed tucked against his shoulder. 10 minutes later, they reached an old mechanic shop, Jackson's late father's place, unused but safe. Jackson unlocked the door, ushered them inside, and finally locked the world out behind them. Alina sank onto a workbench, covering her face, breathing unevenly. Why? She whispered. Why would you risk this for me? Jackson leaned against the door, exhaling slowly. Because someone should have helped you before it got this bad. Because no one deserves to run alone. And because my daughter looked at you and asked if you were okay. A tear slid down Alina's cheek, this one not from fear, but from relief. Mia toddled closer, small and sincere. Don't cry, she said softly. Daddy saves people. Jackson swallowed hard, emotions rising unexpectedly. Alina looked at him as if those words had reached a place inside her long sealed shut. Thank you, she whispered. Jackson nodded, but inside, he knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And as he locked the door again, he made a silent promise. Whoever was hunting Alina would have to go through him first. Part 2. The mechanic shop felt like a bubble sealed from the rest of the world, its dusty windows filtering out the danger that lurked beyond. The air smelled of old engine oil and forgotten memories, but to Jackson, it felt safer than any police station or open street right now. He placed Mia on an old leather chair, handed her crayons from his father's drawer, and gave her a reassuring kiss on the forehead. She settled quickly, humming again, the innocence of childhood shielding her from the panic swirling around the adults. Jackson turned to Alina, who sat trembling, towel still wrapped around her, eyes darting toward every creak and shadow. Start talking, Jackson said calmly, pulling up a dusty stool in front of her. Everything. And don't leave anything out. Alina nodded, wiping her face with shaky fingers. I worked for Lockton Shield, she began. A private security firm, at least. That's what it looks like from the outside. She explained how she was hired as a data analyst, responsible for cleaning up logs, tracing communication trails, and ensuring the company's cyber systems stayed impenetrable. 3 months ago, she said, I found encrypted folders. Hidden ones. They were running surveillance programs, illegal ones. People they shouldn't have been watching. Judges, journalists, whistleblowers, and money transfers, huge ones, to offshore accounts. Payments labeled as security operations, but the recipients were private accounts under fake names. She swallowed hard. I reported it. I thought I was doing the right thing. 48 hours later, I was fired. My badge deactivated. My email wiped. Her voice cracked. 3 days after that, someone tried to run me off the road. Jackson clenched his jaw, and the man outside, his name is Varick, she whispered. He's not just a hired hand. He's their cleaner. If Locked and Shield wants someone gone, he's the one they send. Jackson's stomach tightened. Why didn't you go to the FBI? I tried, she said. But every time I called, someone would hang up. Every attempt was blocked. I realized they had contacts there too. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. This was bigger than he imagined. And now it had landed in the middle of his quiet life, threatening the one person he loved most. What do they want from you? Jackson asked. The files, she said. I copied everything I found onto a drive. They know. They want to erase the evidence and silence me forever. Jackson exhaled. Where's the drive now? Alina hesitated. Then she reached into the waistband of her soaked pants and pulled out a thin, waterproof data stick. Here, she whispered. This is why they're hunting me. Jackson stared at it, realizing he was holding something that could take down a corporation powerful enough to bury people alive. Before he could respond, Mia tugged his sleeve. Daddy, she whispered, someone's outside. Jackson's blood turned to ice. He pressed a finger to his lips, urging her to stay quiet. He listened. A car engine. Slow. Rolling. Searching. Alina grabbed his arm, panic flaring in her eyes. It's him, she whispered. He must have followed us. Jackson peeked through a crack in the boarded window. The same dark van crawled along the alley, headlights slicing through the dim afternoon. Varric stepped out, his posture calm, almost casual, like a predator unbothered by the struggle of its prey. Jackson's heart pounded, but he stayed still, calculating. The shop had 4 exits. 2 were blocked by old junk cars. 1 open to the street Varric was scanning. The last one, the underground storage hatch. His father had built it as a storm shelter. Jackson hadn't been down there in years. But right now, it was their only hope. He grabbed Mia gently and whispered, we're playing another game, okay? A very quiet one. No sound. Like ninjas. Mia's eyes sparkled with excitement. Ninjas. That's right, he whispered. Stay with Daddy. He turned to Alina. We're going underground. Alina didn't argue. She moved quickly, helping him lift the heavy metal hatch. The air below was cool and dry, the narrow staircase barely visible. Jackson led Mia down first, guiding her feet carefully. Alina followed, clutching the data drive and trembling. Jackson pulled the hatch closed just as footsteps crunched outside the front door. They descended into the dark shelter, illuminated only by a dim emergency bulb. The space was cramped but safe. Shelves lined the walls, old canned food, tools, blankets. Mia whispered, Daddy, is it bad guys? Jackson hesitated, then kissed her forehead. Daddy's here. You're safe. Above them, the shop door creaked open. Varric had entered. Heavy footsteps echoed. Slow. Intentional. Searching. Jackson wrapped an arm around Mia, holding her close, while Alina pressed a hand against her mouth to muffle her breathing. Varric's footsteps moved around the shop, kicking debris, checking corners. At one point, he paused directly over the hatch. Alina squeezed her eyes shut. Mia hugged Jackson tighter. Jackson didn't breathe. The weight of silence pressed on them like a mountain. Then, footsteps moved away. The front door slammed. The van engine roared. Slowly, it faded. They waited several long minutes before Jackson finally whispered, he's gone. Alina sagged against the wall, sobs shaking through her. Mia patted her arm. It's okay. Daddy said we're safe. When they finally emerged from the hatch, Jackson knew this couldn't continue. Running wouldn't work. Hiding wouldn't work. Varric would keep coming until he got what he wanted. Jackson turned to Alina, his voice steady. We're not hiding anymore. We're ending this. Alina's breath hitched. How? He held up the data drive. We take this to someone who can't be bought. Someone outside their reach. A journalist. A federal judge. Someone with more eyes on them than they can silence. Alina stared at him, hope flickering behind her exhaustion. Jackson, you don't have to do this. Yes, he said, glancing at Mia, who was humming again as if danger were nothing more than a passing shadow. I do. Because you walked into my home broken and scared, and I refused to let the people who did that win. Tears welled in Alina's eyes. Not fear, not grief, but gratitude. I trust you, she whispered. Jackson nodded. Good. Because this ends now. And for the first time since she stumbled into his bathroom soaked and terrified, Alina actually believed it might be true.